Hi, welcome to Coffee with Pastor. We're going to talk coffee, current events at Grace Fellowship of Lexington, morning walk with Pastor Jim Schreiner, and we're going to also just have some great time of fellowship, talking about things in the Word, things that are on our hearts, what God's doing here at our church. We invite you to listen, to watch, to join us, get a cup of coffee, and just enjoy your time with us. Thank you.
All right. Welcome back to Coffee with Pastor. We're so glad that you've joined us, whether you're watching, whether you're listening. Thank you for supporting, liking, sharing. I'm Jason, and again, we have the wonderful, the amazing, the phenomenal Pastor Jim Schreiner.
Pastor Jim Schreiner. That's me. Thank you, guys. We're so thankful for you. Like Jason said, following us, watching the broadcast, listening to it. I'm amazed with the reach that we're having.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, had someone come up to me after our Thursday morning service a few weeks ago and thanked us because they came up with a Christmas gift for their son and bought him an Ember coffee cup, and he loves it.
Oh, all
since
right.
we did that on the podcast. So hopefully you're drinking some different coffee. I'm getting feedback from people saying, man, you were right. French press is the way to make coffee. And there's a lot of different ways to make it, but that still is my favorite.
Yeah.
My favorite way to do it.
Now, this person, I told him, I said, we do a podcast for this stuff. But someone in Kroger, this lady, she's in the coffee aisle and she's staring at the wall of coffee.
It's like the toilet paper aisle.
It's like they're all the same but different, and they are not the same.
No, they are not.
But she was like, she's like, I don't know what to get, and I said, well, I don't, because I was she's like, what are you getting? I said, I get the Lavazza. I was like, that's what we like to get. And I said, what do you normally go to? She's like, sorry. There's no endorsement, so I can say it if I want to. She's like, Maxwell House. And I was like, oh. I was like, bless your heart.
I thought you wanted coffee.
I said, there's better out there. I said, come down here. And so, yeah, she's like, so what are you getting? I said, the Lavazza. And she goes, I can get 2, jugs of Maxwell. I said, no. I said, it's not about quantity. We're talking quality. And I said, I promise you won't regret it. I said, I'll buy it for you. And so I'm hoping, I'm sure that she enjoyed it.
I hope you see her
She
again.
did. She got the Lavazza.
Yeah, did she really?
Yeah.
It is good coffee.
Yeah.
I really, that couple in Brussels is the one that got us started on it.
Yeah.
And now if a restaurant serves Lavazza, to me, they go up in my ranking
just went
of
up.
restaurants. Yep,
you get a better Yelp.
Yeah, you get a. I don't do those reviews, but yeah, that to me, honestly, and I don't realize I do it, but it is kind of subconscious that, oh, you serve Lavazza coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a nice restaurant.
Yeah. Well, they take the time. They're like, let's get something a little more premium, something nice.
Yeah.
The other one, I'm trying to think of what else there. As far as like stuff you buy at the store, we love local shops.
Yes.
Like the one you talked about, you can actually go and get. They actually roast their own
Yes.
beans. It's a whole thing.
That's one of the things I ask. If I go into, even if we're traveling, and if I go into a coffee shop, I'll ask them, do you roast your own?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, like my favorite coffee shop here in Lexington, they don't roast their own. They buy from a roaster, but it's just an hour north of here.
Yeah. It's still local.
We're still local to me. And to me, it makes a difference. I want to support local roasters. There's another coffee shop here in town that's very, very first time I ever went to it, I went with Pastor Eric, and we met there for coffee, and we were walking out the door, and I looked around, I go, I don't believe this. And he goes, what? I go, I'm at least 20 years old than everybody in here. And he goes, nah, probably 30. But this is a cool coffee shop because their roaster is right there in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
So, if you catch them when they're roasting or even talk to them about it, it's an interesting process to me. And then we have a man here in our congregation, Tom, roasts his own coffee.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think it was, you've told the story. It might be that shop that you're referencing, but they started with like a popcorn popper.
That's actually, I don't mind endorsing this one. That's actually Nate's coffee.
That's Nate's coffee?
Yeah. Nate started, I met him, sorry, it's time to make coffee. So I actually met him at a home and garden show a few years ago, and we were helping my brother-in-law. And so Nate's booth was right across the way from ours, and he gave coffee samples every morning. And so I just happened to go by his booth every morning. And so we got to know him, and he told us the story about how he started roasting coffee in his garage
Yeah.
in a hot air popcorn popper, which if you look online, that is one way to do it.
Yeah. So not in a microwave.
Not a microwave. You can actually do it in an oven. It just doesn't work as well because it doesn't have the air circulation
Yeah.
that a hot air popcorn popper or an actual roaster has.
Yeah.
But I know way too much about it. I just be honest with you. I'm a geek when
No,
it
it's-
comes to coffee roasting.
It's awesome.
I would love to do it. And years ago, my wife Elizabeth and I went and visited a Christian roasting company.
Mm-hmm.
They only buy beans from growers that support the gospel,
Yeah.
which is really a cool concept. And so we went down, we met the guys that own it. They gave us a tour. They showed us how to roast. They even told me, we'll roast it for you. You tell us what you want. And come to think of it, I just kind of lost touch with them. But
Yeah.
I could call them and say, I want this bean. I want it roasted a little bit darker. And they'll do it for me, which is really cool. But we drove away from there. My wife looked at me and she goes, "No, you are not buying a roaster."
You're like, oh man, I want to do this.
I didn't want to. No, not at all.
Oh man. And I think we've talked about it before. I just found out recently that the darker the roast, the less caffeinated.
Yeah.
And then the lighter the roast. I think a lot of people think, I want the dark roast 'cause it's got more caffeine, which
Yeah.
was actually not true.
Yeah. I actually, the caffeine, that's not what I'm drinking it for. I love the taste of coffee.
Yeah.
I really do. And I like the darker roast. I love the flavor that it brings out. Yeah, everybody thinks like espresso is the highest shot of caffeine you can get.
Yeah.
And the reason it is because it's such a small amount.
Yeah.
But I like the darker roast, not for caffeine, but for the flavor. I just prefer that flavor. And this that we're drinking today, this is
really
another
good.
bag from the Vietnamese coffee that I got for Christmas.
Oh, okay.
And I'm really curious what you think of it because the name of it is actually True Grit.
No, it's really good. It's very hot,
Yeah, I'm going to have to cool down a little bit, but
it's very
it's
good.
a good flavor.
Yeah.
And this is the one we did that. It's got a little filter a metal filter that goes on top of the cup.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the cup, the filter, all of that. And when you make it the way they say to make it, it is extreme. It's like a cup of espresso.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I like strong coffee, but this is really strong coffee.
Oh, wow.
I mean, she was putting the video I watched. She was putting like 4 or 5 scoops for one cup, and I like strong coffee, but that no.
Yeah. Well, even before we started, I put the coffee in the French press. I was like, is this enough? Because I've loaded it up before. It's like, that's too much. And you got to find that happy medium. You got to find the right amount. So
It is good though. It's
Yeah.
good coffee.
it is. Well, 2025, February is Saturday. Isn't that wild?
It is crazy how, and the word says that towards the return of Jesus, that time is going to speed up.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of that comes with age.
Oh, yeah.
When you're 5 years old, a year is forever.
Yeah.
And then when you're a little bit older than 5, like I am,
Just a little bit.
just a little bit. And I understand that part of it, but we're living in a time of acceleration. And what we need to remember is that's a positive thing for people of faith.
Yeah.
That means my promises are going to come to pass quicker than what they have in the past.
Yeah.
That's our expectation. That's what we need to be expecting.
Amen. So current events, we are having I don't know if I'm allowed to say, we're having a football watch party. That would be it. Football watch party.
There's a game where the best 2 teams in the NFL play.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a watch party.
And we're going to watch their, yeah. I don't know if we can say it or not.
We started that last year, and we do it in our fellowship hall. We have couches here. Our youth room has couches. I have a couch in my office. I have a real comfortable leather chair. And so we just bring all of that. You guys have it down in the music department. You have couches, and we bring all that into our fellowship hall. People bring appetizers, and we'd love to have you come. But if you come, bring food.
Yeah, bring food.
The game is great, but it's
Yeah.
about the appetizers. And so the plan is we'll start about 5:30 that night.
Yep.
And we had a ball last year. It
Yeah.
was so much fun. And it doesn't matter if your team's in it or not. It's more about just hanging out with family.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the biggest thing because you know me, I'm not a big sports guy. I don't follow. I like it socially.
Yeah.
If you're going to watch the UK football game or basketball game at your house or something, we'll come over or whatever. But generally, I'm no idea who's in what and what. And so anyway,
And I couldn't tell you anything about guitars.
but I enjoy the party.
Yeah,
we have a good time.
Fellowship is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And truthfully, in the church world, fellowship just means there's going to be food there.
Yeah, and the camaraderie.
Yes.
There's if your team's in it, that's a good time for you, I'm sure.
One of the things that's to me is so exciting about sports in general is how many outspoken Christians are coming to the forefront in sports.
Yeah,
There's so many of the quarterbacks, like Jaden Daniels is the quarterback now. He's the quarterback for the Washington Commanders, an outspoken believer. C.J. Stroud, the quarterback for the Houston Texans, an outspoken believer. And I remember during the season, one of the reporters asked him, we never hear you cuss, we never hear you throw a fit. And he said, I can't proclaim that I'm a Christian and then not act like one. And that the level of respect that I have for him really is just – he was playing I think it was Jaden Daniels, the Commanders quarterback, during the season. They were playing a game, and a player on the opposite team got hurt. And they showed a close-up. Jaden Daniels got down on his knee and prayed for them. You saw him pray for the guy.
Yeah. I saw that.
And then get on with the game, which that's so cool.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of a funny story about Pastor Callahan. We used to, before we remodeled our sanctuary, it was a school gymnasium.
Yeah.
And so we had basketball goals up, and we would go out twice a week. All the pastors would go out and play. And I remember one of the games, Pastor and I were on opposite teams, and I twisted my ankle. It hurt.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he goes, I'll pray for you after the game. And went on with the rest of the game. It was like, I'm not praying for you because, we'll win. Just your team's a player down now. He was kidding, just so y'all know. But he didn't pray for me till after the game.
You really do get it in some of these competitions. Oh man,
it's an awesome thing about where our church and where our ministry is, that I can honestly say, ministry-wise, preaching, doing the work of the ministry, there is absolutely no competition among us.
Yeah. Now,
other things, sports or competitions, we're very competitive. Every one of us is very competitive. But it's such a refreshing thing that in our ministry now, that I'm not trying to outpreach somebody else. Somebody else is not trying to outpreach me. We're not comparing, well, look at how many people came in my prayer line. And you may say, well, Pastor, that doesn't ever happen. Oh, yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. And I've witnessed it. It's a terrible thing when you allow competition into your ministry. It'll destroy it.
Yeah.
It really will destroy it.
I remember when you used to play a lot more golf than you have time for now.
Yeah.
But that was the thing, that there was a lot of people like, I've got to beat him in golf.
Yeah. And the funny thing is I didn't care.
Yeah.
I really didn't. But if you're going to compete with me, I'm going to compete with you.
Yeah.
I really. It would so aggravate Pastor Bob in Illinois, because he would have golf outings. And he would try to make my team the worst of the group. And I'm not that great a golfer. Don't misunderstand me. But we would win, and he would get so angry. And then one year he didn't do a 5K because the people weren't ready for it. But I was running 5 and 6 miles a day at the time. Yeah. So he did a 3K.
Yeah.
And you could walk or run. And so some people were asking me, and I'm like, look, I don't care. I'm just going to walk. Well, then I got there, and then people started.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay. And so I won my age group.
All right, yeah.
But they didn't let me win.
No.
They gave a medal to everybody but me.
Pastor Bob, we love you.
Yeah.
You're the best.
We do love you. There's times, but No, that was funny. The whole church was in on it.
Yeah.
Like, we are not going to let him win. But and I had people come up to me. They go, "You said you were going to walk." I said, "Well, I was till y'all started competing, and then
Yeah, you all started this.
you pushed me."
So speaking of a ministry, we used to. So we've got a conference. We'll talk more about it as we get closer because it's not till March. But winter conference,
Yes.
is March 18th through the 21st. So go ahead and let you know early. Make your plans to be here March 18th to the 21st. But we used to do that in February, right?
Yes, we did.
And it was, well,
It actually was winter conference.
winter. Yeah, we needed like end of winter conference.
Yeah, we used to do it in February, and we did have some bad weather,
Yeah,
and so we moved it to March. And then after Pastor Callahan went to heaven, I actually moved it a week later,
yeah,
so that it wasn't the same week as it was when he went to heaven.
Yeah.
So the 18th through the 21st is going to be a powerful week.
Yeah.
It always is. The day sessions for that will start Wednesday morning. The day sessions for that, it's open to everyone, but it's more centered toward those that are in ministry.
Mhm.
And so God's already given me, we have the schedule already laid out. Wednesday night, Jason Avanzini is going to be with us.
Oh,
so he'll
all
be
right.
back with us. But the day sessions are going to be things like how to have a successful youth group, how to structure your children's ministry, how to structure your church finances. And so I've got, I think it's 3 sessions every morning and a different person teaching them, and a couple of us will teach. Of just the side of ministry that sadly, most pastors don't even think about.
Yeah,
That we just want to help. That's
yeah.
not saying that we've arrived and we're the experts at it, but I want to help people. Man, I don't want people to have to find their way on their own.
Well, honestly, it reminds me of something I wanted to ask you about. This was probably a couple weeks ago, that I was driving and there was a funeral procession. And so I pulled over to the shoulder, put my flashers on, and I waited until the entire procession had gone by me. And then, then I was like, okay, I'll get back on the road.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot of people doing that. There was people, honking at, when I was first trying to get over, they were honking at me and waving at me.
Yeah.
And
that funny wave.
and I was like, guys, does no one know what you're supposed to do? And I think there's a lot of stuff like that has been lost or not handed down.
Yeah. And I'm not saying we're the last, but we're one of the last. Like, if you go more north, nobody does that.
Oh, really?
When some people from Illinois came down to some of the funerals we've had here, they were shocked that we had a police escort.
Oh,
They
really?
said they don't do that.
Oh,
They don't do that in Illinois, and I know more of the northern states don't either. And a lot of people, they're not taught the respect. They're not taught what to do, and there's such a move. It's so sad, but there has been such an exodus from the church. Now we're seeing the opposite here.
Yeah.
We're seeing growth. We're seeing people come in, but they don't know the respect. I will never forget when Pastor Callahan's first wife Bonnie went to heaven 15, 16 years ago, probably longer than that now. When she went to heaven and we were doing the funeral procession from the church to the cemetery, there was a man out mowing his yard that stopped his tractor and took his hat off.
yeah,
That to me it's just respect. It's what you're supposed to do.
yeah. But stuff like that, I feel like you could teach a class on some of that stuff of how you take care of someone that comes in to minister. Of this is how I don't know how we treat people.
Now, we did that. It's probably been 3 years ago. Periodically, as a matter of fact, this month I'm doing a class on spiritual fathers or spiritual failures. And I do a 1-hour Monday night class online only.
Yeah.
There's no in person. But I did one, I think it was 3 years ago, and it was things like that of how to do a funeral, how to do a wedding.
Yeah.
How to treat ministers. We've dealt with that during the winter conference,
Yeah.
the morning sessions of what do you do? What's right to take care of? Like, we just had our missionary from India, John Paul, with us a few weeks ago, and his daughter Pam flew in from California, and she was amazed. She told me multiple times, she says, I've never seen my dad taken care of like this.
Yeah.
Funny thing was they kept trying to pay. And I took him out on Saturday for lunch, and we were sitting waiting to be seated. And I looked at John Paul and Pam, and I said, listen, you need to understand something right now. Don't get your wallet out. Don't try to pay for this. Do not do that. And they both just kind of looked at each other. We sat down, we had lunch, and sure enough, they pulled their credit cards out. And I said, don't even try. And it blessed me because Pastor Eric and Sarah were there, and Pastor Eric said, you need to understand something about Pastor Jim. You're going to have to be a little bit more sneaky than that if you're going to get a bill from him.
Yeah.
So it is. It's important how you take care of visiting ministers. I treat them like royalty because they are.
Yeah.
They really are.
And I think it's, of course, we have churchisms that we've talked about before, but some of that stuff in there about, honor and obviously imitating those who, through faith and patience, have inherited the promises, the people that have gone before us. But I think it's such a thing that some of the things are getting lost or not handed down.
They really are, and it's sad because we had a move in the church world, and we've talked about it. It's been a while. We've had a move in the church world that the church world didn't want anything to do with the last generation.
Yeah.
And so you hear it a lot. Well, I want to go to church where everybody's my age. Understand something. Going to a church where everybody's your age is unscriptural.
Yeah.
And you may say, oh, Pastor, no, it's not. You can't prove that. Oh, yeah. Well, Paul told Timothy, older teach the younger. So if you don't have the older there, everybody's the same age, your church doesn't qualify as a scriptural church.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to have, youngers learn from the olders. Olders teach the younger. Older women teach the young women how to be discreet. I'm just putting it in my words. Because a lot of them don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what's okay and what's not. And I'm not talking about preaching. Clothesline preaching is what they call it.
Yeah.
Telling you what to wear and what not to wear. But that's how we're supposed to be as a body, is every generation growing together.
Yeah.
And again, I know we've talked about it in the past, but we need the wisdom of the older generation, the stability of the younger generation, and the fire and the vitality of the new converts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes a healthy church.
Yeah.
And I want to go to a church for my age. Well, you're not going to learn anything.
Yeah. To me, and it's silly, and it's something that doesn't, it's just a good example, I think. But when we've had dinners, and you and Elizabeth love to do big dinners, and she loves getting out all the stuff, like all the silverware and stuff. And I'll sit down, I'm like, why do we have 4 forks?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, this one's for this and this one's for that. And I know that's a simple etiquette thing, but those things I think are important.
And I've noticed when you said it that way, I remember, like, there's times that we've taken groups of people multiple times to nice restaurants.
Yeah.
And we do it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I want to bless staff. I want to bless our leaders. And I don't even know that I need to say it, but I think I do. And when I do those things, Elizabeth and I do that.
Yeah.
That's not the church paying for us to go to a really nice restaurant. What are they doing spending that church money? And no, this is my money.
Yeah.
But we do it for a couple of reasons. We do, number one, we want to bless people. We want to be a blessing. But number two, we also want to show people there's good things out there.
Yeah.
There's more. But I watch people that have never been to a nice restaurant, and I can watch them watch us.
Yeah.
And it's like we're going to do whatever Pastor and Miss Elizabeth do. And so, they'll follow us, and listen to what we order or whatever it is. But if we're going to walk in the wealth that God has for us, we need to know how to act when it comes.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the world, you can tell the difference between old money and new money.
Yeah.
New money, I'm not saying we got to have rules and regulations. That's not it. But you watch back to our sports analogies, you watch some of the athletes, the really good coaches, guys like, I could go down through the college coaches, will tell their players, when you score, act like you've been there before.
Yeah.
Don't make it like it's your once in a lifetime and you got to. And so that's we just want to show people how good our God is.
Yeah.
And anyway,
Anyway.
I could go on that for a while, but I won't.
Well, do you have a message for us for the week?
It's been a couple weeks ago now, but really the Holy Spirit and John Paul really started it back up in me. Just basic faith teaching. And the scripture in James where it says faith without works is dead. There were early theologians that honestly didn't want the book of James included in the canon of scriptures.
Really?
Because faith without works is dead. And that doesn't mean, see, what happens is if you don't understand, you hear that verse, faith without works is dead. Oh, I got to earn it. I got to do the works.
Yeah.
And no, James says, you show me your faith, I'll show you my works, which means I'll show you what I'm doing because I have faith. And it's very easy in this walk of faith, it's very easy to kind of get lazy in it and just say, okay, God, go ahead and do it. I'm waiting on you, God. I believe you. Now go ahead and do it. And we don't have any part to play. When you look through the miracles, every miracle Jesus did, there was a work associated with the faith that the man with the withered hand, Jesus looked at him and said, stretch forth your hand. So it wasn't just, well, Jesus, heal my hand and then I'll do something. Jesus said, no, stretch forth your hand. So the works was stretch, just even expecting, I'm going to stretch forth my hand.
Yeah.
And it was made just like the other. The lame man, he said, take up your bed and walk. Healing didn't come, and then he stood up and walked.
Yeah.
Healing came as he put one translation, and I apologize, I don't remember which translation it is. It actually translates that verse, faith without corresponding action is dead.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the traps that we fall into. I'll say this, one of the traps I have fallen into in this walk of faith is we do things to try to prove to God that we have faith. For instance, I know I can't afford this apartment, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take a step of faith and I'm going to sign the lease knowing I can't afford it.
Yeah.
That's not faith.
Yeah.
Faith is having the money before I do it. Faith is saying, okay, God, this is the apartment that I'm believing for. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to increase my giving. And when I see that steady growth of income, I'm going to step out and I'm going to get that. Because if I run up a bill saying I'm just stepping out in faith, it's not my faith that's on the line. It's the person that gave me the credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because right now they're trusting God that I'm going to pay them.
Yeah.
And so and I did a lot of that. We moved into a house I knew we couldn't afford, but I'm going to take a step of faith. And man, I tell you what, we fought and kicked and scratched and scrimped. And finally I had to go back to the landlord and go, look, I blew it. Can we lower my rent? Because I can't afford this.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a step of faith. My faith shouldn't cost them.
Yeah.
And that's the key. And so to understand that, and I'm going to say it again, as simple, this is how to understand it. I'm not doing things to prove I have faith.
Yeah.
I'm doing things because I have faith.
Yeah.
For instance, people will say, well, I got this problem in my body, but I'm going to walk it out by faith, so I'm not going to go to a doctor. Now, I don't have a problem if you tell me I'm not going to a doctor, but if you're not going to a doctor to prove you have faith, you're wrong. If you can't go to a doctor in faith, you can't not go to the doctor in faith.
Yeah.
Go, whether you go or not, and people will come and ask me, Pastor, I got this going on. Should I go to the doctor? I have the same answer to every single person. If you're needing to ask me this question, you need to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock. It's not well, bless God, one day you'll have faith and be like me. No, that's not what I'm saying. I want to keep you around.
Yeah.
And so go to the doctor, build your faith. Add your faith to what he's doing in the natural, and now it becomes supernatural.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah, you're talking about that you had to admit that you blew it. I was having a Bible study with our youth pastor, and we were talking about a similar kind of subject. But it came up about, what if I've done something to myself? Like, I got myself in this hole. What do you do? Does that make it harder to have faith? It's like, well, I deserve this. I did this to myself. what do you do in that situation? Or,
Hey, God, I did this to myself. I'm sorry. I believe I've received my healing.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
My favorite story about it. I don't know if I have time to tell the whole story, but
yeah, maybe not. But yeah, that was just one side of it.
I mean, it was one I did to myself, and the Holy Spirit says, "Why don't you ask me for healing?" And I said, "I did this to myself." He said, "That doesn't change the promise."
Yeah.
And it doesn't. It doesn't change the promise at all.
Yeah. So even if we've made a boo-boo and said, well, I'm going to do this in faith, and you kind of put yourself in a bind, it doesn't mean that he can't or
He's
won't.
the God of getting you out of a bind.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. He is. That's who he is.
Yeah. Amen. Well, Holly, next time we'll talk more.
Now we're out of time again. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you all for listening, for joining us. Keep sharing it, keep following, listen, subscribe. You can find us on all the major platforms, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Come visit us here in person, Lexington, Kentucky, 40516. I need the address.
4514 Briar Hill Road, then Lexington, Kentucky, 40516.
Thank you all. Have a good one. Bye.